Okay, what's up, people? This is Mikhail, the Idea Shifter. This is the Blue Room Podcast. And like I say on every podcast, I bless the mic because I got something to say. I rock headphones because I'm listening twice as much as I talk. And this podcast is spinning off from one we did last week. It was about men and marriage. And we went over some statistics that just like shocked me. Okay, they shocked me that 75% of divorces are requested by women. But y'all know how my mind works. Mathematically, I added it up. That means in 2022, it was about 746,000 divorces. That means that 596,800 is these divorces which was requested by women, y'all. Now, I'm not saying women, like I said on the last podcast, I'm not saying they don't have a reason to ask for divorces. But as men, I want us to know what the hell is going wrong. Like why can't we stay together? It's not that you have to be married, but I'm the type, man, if you're going to do something, you do it right. You do it how it's supposed to do, and you make it last. So right now, I got three people that are very dynamic people. I got a corporate guy. I got two authors. I got a life coach on here. So you know what? We're going to do ladies first. I don't need to introduce. Well, I might need to introduce myself, but I'm not. So we're gonna go Deidre, then we're gonna go Reba, then we're gonna go Garrett. Introduce yourselves. Let people know. Make sure you let them know how long you've been married and whatever pertinent information so that they know you are quote unquote a life expert on this topic. So go ahead, shoot, Deidre.
Hey everyone, I am DP, author DP of What is a Good Husband. It's my first children's book that I wrote with many, many more to come. I have been married 8 years. Yay me. Many, many more to come for those as well. How y'all doing out there?
Well, thanks for coming on. I'm really looking forward to hear about how a person who wrote a children's book about being a husband feels about 596,800 women asking for divorce last year. This is gonna be
right.
good.
The reason
Right.
why I had to write a children's book about why men need to be better husbands. Those reasons.
Okay, let's go next.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Reba Haas. I am the Breakthrough Coach, as you see on the screen, but I have a podcast too, the Breakthrough Podcast. I am a life coach. I help people heal from their trauma and their past experiences and also abuse. So I have two books that I have. From Ashes to Beauty is one, and A Blessing in Disguise is my first one. And I am currently separated, going on 8 years married also. But I am separated, and I am the one that asked for the divorce. So that's me.
Woo, so that's 596,801. I'm gonna add you to the number. Okay.
He said he gonna add you to the number.
That's cool. That's cool. It's nice to meet you. It's nice to meet you. Like that smile. Now, come on. What's up, Gary? You my backup on here. You the only dude on here.
I got you. Hey, everybody. My name is Garrett Daniels. Been married for 15 years. Have 3 children. Professionally, I'm a director of real estate for a medical real estate investment trust company. And thank you for having me. Really glad to be here and be a part of this discussion, which is very needed, very important.
Oh, yes. And I'm letting y'all know, I'm setting the tone. This is not to say women are wrong or women are right, but man, we need to learn something. Okay. And I was just talking to somebody at my job. What I found out is that women sit up with women and try to talk about men. Women try to learn about men from women, and men try to learn about women from other men, instead of men learning about women from women and women learning about women from men. So that's the reason why I got this set up this way. Okay. So simply put, whichever woman wants to answer this first. Why are 75 to 80%, which adds up to 596,801 if we add Reba, why are these women requesting a divorce? Come on, we need to hear this.
All right, you want to take it away, D, or me?
Yeah, well, I'll start. In my humble opinion, I just really think the number is so high because women just give up, and the man will stay there. As long as they're getting a home cooked meal and they got a warm bed, they don't really leave. They don't never see the problem. They like really clueless. And you have this woman here that's probably then had a billion conversations with this guy, like, hey, I need this, I'm not feeling this, I need this going on. This is my needs are not being met here, here, here. And they're like, yeah. They don't pay attention to a woman's needs like that. Almost, how they do black women with their pain. It's like it don't exist. We got to endure. And then it's like, because we take it and we're forgiven and we like, all right, we take it on the chin and we keep on trucking, but nothing never changes. And eventually the woman be like, all right, I got to love me, Lucius.
So you said, so basically you saying women pretty much, I mean, the men stick around. It sounds like because they benefit from sticking around pretty much. That if that's what you mean, they benefit from sticking around, but they're not changing. They don't change. They'll stick around forever. And the woman stays and endures that pain, and he's just there because he's benefiting, but she is not. Is that correct? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
That's basically in a nutshell what I'm saying. Like, we stay in these marriages and we still doing what we supposed to do unhappily, still cooking, still cleaning, still, sexually providing with a smile on our face, but down in the inside. So they'll take that little bit like a liver, as big as your liver is, if you got this much a healthy liver, it'll still keep going. So that little bit that they get from you, they'll keep trucking with that. They don't see the problem. Although we know what the problems are. You know what I'm saying?
By the way, y'all, that's the definition of active listening. That's a technique that you use in marriage, so you get the right message from your wife or your spouse, so that you know what they said. You let them reframe it, so you leave with the right understanding. So I just want to illustrate that because I'm doing a video about that actually, because I found out that I wasn't as good of a listener as I thought I was. So what you got, Reba? What you got?
All right, so this is deep. Piggyback on what Dee said. Personally, yes, I do think it's that, but I also want to piggyback on what you said. First, when you first introduced, you said do it right. I wrote it down, and do it how it's supposed to do, how it's supposed to be, right? I think, like I said, to piggyback on what Dee said, once we get used to the person, we go through this, like they call the 7-year itch, and I do believe sometimes that is very true. People change and people transform. And sometimes the other spouse may not want, which is the man, may not want to see that. And also when you're flourishing and you coming into your person, the other person may be still that person that they was when y'all first got married. Well, that's not how marriage is supposed to work. You're supposed to be growing together. You're supposed to be nurturing each other. And you're also supposed to be separately but independent, but at the same time, collectively growing together in marriage, period. And so the same person that I was when I married you, maybe 10, 15, or when we was dating years ago, I am flourishing into this beautiful blossom woman. And you may not want to see that. It may be a lot of things about finances. It may be things about, maybe I felt like, because men are supposed to be the protectors and providers, maybe I felt like that's your position, that's your role, and I'm still doing my role. But also, maybe that's something I want to do and expand my life and my career. And maybe you stuck into, well, you're supposed to be this one person, and you're supposed to be this, and you're supposed to be that. Maybe the person don't want to see you grow. It's a lot of reasons, but I'll say, logistically, my reason is because I think a lot of marriages outgrow each other, and we don't want to do the work after we outgrow each other. And so one person may not want to do the work like she just said, and that's the reason why I said piggyback off what she said, because it has to be growth in anything. You can't just be dead, because after a while, transformation has to come in the marriage. And if I could say that I'm still the same person from 7-8 years ago, I think that's a problem in a marriage. So that's a
problem in life.
But
exactly what they say, if it ain't growing, it's dead.
If it ain't growing, it's dead. Right. Okay, I hear a common theme, but I'm gonna go last so I can weave it together. So I like that. I like that. So relationships. People are in relationships, and some people don't grow. And if people don't grow, relationships don't grow. That's what I hear you saying.
Exactly.
And come on, Garrett. What you got?
And the cool thing about what
go ahead,
she said was,
go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Women are actively trying to change. Like we're actively trying to get rid of this trauma. We're actively reading, and we're on podcasts, and it's like the men don't take those steps. So to piggyback off of what she said, it's like a woman be changing and growing, and we elevating, and we trying to educate ourselves and expand our mind, and the guys be the same dude for 10 years ago. They not reading. They not trying to expand. They not trying to heal. So it's like when you have the woman like that, look at that. The black women leading in education now. We leading in entrepreneurship now.
Exactly.
Like women is going crazy.
Exactly.
And so the man on the side being the same man he was 10 years ago, like she was saying, I can see how that'd be a problem where it's like y'all at a standstill.
Yes, and I'll say that because society is geared to the promotion of the woman now. It's no longer geared for the encouragement of the man. That's a different podcast. Come on, Garrett.
Right? Yeah. Go ahead.
About the 746,596,800, and we're gonna add Reba just because it's fun to do it in the podcast.
Every time
ask for divorce. So come on. What's up, Garrett? What you got?
So I'll say I definitely appreciate what the ladies are saying, but I want to be careful about making certain generalizations about what men do and don't do, because there are some guys out there that genuinely want to make their marriages work, and they do take it seriously, and they do, find things that they have to work on themselves. And I think, Reba, you mentioned something about growth earlier, and I think one aspect of it is that everybody grows at a different rate, right? So first of all, you're bringing two people together from probably two different backgrounds, two different life experiences, and you're expecting them to, the expectation is that they become one. But in that process, in that growth process, it happens at a different rate for each person. The man may grow faster, the woman may grow faster, but I think the level of communication in that growth process has to be solid, and there has to be a level of love and respect between the two people to say, you know what, I got to give you your space to grow. I may have certain expectations of what I think you should be and what you think I should be to meet the mark. But in saying that, I got to give you the room and the space to grow. Now, the question is, okay, well, how long do I give you? How long do I have to be patient? Well, let's go back to the vows and not everybody takes the same vows. Of course, today people write their own vows, but in general, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, for in sickness and in health, till death do us part, right? Most of the time, people only want to focus on the richer, the healthy, and the good part of that vow, and not look at the opposite side. And usually the opposite side, when it comes, that's where the trouble comes, and that's where things disintegrate. And I just feel like people have to take a step back. And somebody said something before the podcast started about some people that are married shouldn't be married. I think people really need to think about those vows that they are taking before they cross that line and realize, like, man, this is really serious, and I'm going to be with this person no matter what. There are some boundaries, of course. There's some things that are probably non-negotiable, but in general, just making sure that you know what you're getting into before you get into that kind of commitment. That's just my opinion on that.
Yes, and the one common theme that everybody is making is growth, change, and expectations. Okay, did you know that in the corporate world, they actually hire people to institute change? Like, a company will bring somebody in. One of my guys is a change culture manager and project manager for Nordstrom. This is what he does on a national scale. He brings change into something. And I think what happens in relationships is if we want to be honest, we have an expectation in marriage that may be unrealistic. I think one thing, so I'm married 15 years, but I was divorced too. So this is my second time being married. Okay. And my expectations of marriage changed from the first time I married to the second time I married. And I think what happens with people is you have these expectations of marriage, and when they don't meet up to your expectations, now you want a divorce. Now, I'm not talking about somebody abusing you, okay? Let's get the outliers out. I'm not talking about somebody smacking you around, or he's stealing your money and molesting your kids, or vice versa. We're not talking about extreme situations, because in these statistics, most of them end because of irreconcilable differences. They're not in or adultery. It's one or the other. And sometimes with expectations, we don't have realistic expectations, and we don't really know what it requires to make those expectations work. So we have these expectations about what marriage is, and then there's what marriage is. Okay. So let me use myself as an example. When I married my wife was a virgin. At 33, however old she was, I could not calculate the risk of marrying someone who had been a virgin that long. Because we talk about people that's being damaged, but there are certain things that when you sit and calculate in a marriage, you can't calculate what the change looks like. Like you didn't know that when you got to the 5th year of marriage, your desires were going to change. Exactly. Okay. So what tends to happen is I like the growing at different rates. So what I want to learn how to do as a man is to provide an atmosphere for my wife to grow in, and for me, for her to grow with me and me to grow with her. But what I found is, and I'm going to put this out there, when you have growth, you have change, and you have expectations, right? Sometimes what happens in a marriage, patience, right? So sometimes things take patience. Sometimes things don't happen overnight. Sometimes there are things that happen in a marriage that you just could not calculate. And a lot of the ways, you guys, some of us men, we don't know that we're damaged until we get with you. Like you don't know. I didn't know I was traumatized until I got with you. I didn't know how to communicate till I had somebody to communicate with. I didn't know that I didn't know how to manage money until I had to manage my money with you. I didn't know that I had to be accountable till it was somebody I had to tell when I was going to be home because I was going to be late. So these are not lessons that men learn as boys. So now when you marry a man that's a boy and he has to relearn these things, he doesn't know how a man operates. So a lot of times what women are up against is you're dealing with a boy. Because a man should have taught him the stuff that a woman is trying to teach him.
Amen.
So I'm teaching my son how to be accountable. I'm teaching him how to manage money. I'm teaching him how to grow. I'm teaching him how to pursue knowledge. A man will have difficulty learning that from a woman. I don't care how good of a woman you are. It's hard for a man to learn something from a woman that he should have learned from another man. So when we talk about growth, change, and expectations, one more thing, I'm going to put this out there. I think people get married to be happy, and I think that's a mistake.
Exactly.
I think when happiness leaves your marriage, now you don't want to be married anymore because you don't have the feeling of happy. You can go through, me and my wife went about 3 years where I felt like we were totally disconnected, but now we're on the other side of that. Now I got this connection, but if I had given up before I got there, I wouldn't have this wonderful marriage that I have. So what y'all got for me? I put a lot on the table. What you think about preparation for marriage, purpose, whatever? Go ahead, Reba.
Okay, I wanted to piggyback off something you said. Okay, I agree with everything you said. And here's the thing. Also, when there are 2 people in a marriage, there has to be 2 people making the marriage work. We agree. Yeah. There has to be 2 people that want the marriage to work. Okay, you cannot go into a job and say I ain't working today. Same way you can't go into anything and get a paycheck. Let's be real. You think you're gonna get a paycheck and you just sitting there? Okay, you're gonna get fired. So after a while of saying I don't want to put the work in, and you're seeing your mate not want to put the work in, because like he said, like Corey said, it comes with discipline. It also comes with patience. But on the other end, the person has to want to change. Let's talk about that. Let's hit that. You have to want to do the work. If your spouse is coming to you saying, okay, I think we need to go to therapy, counseling, marriage counseling, we're hitting a roadblock, because we know that does happen in marriage. If the other person is saying no, you think after a while you're going to keep on sitting there and saying, okay, I'm sticking in this till they say yes. After
Definitely
a while,
not.
It got to be a discipline enough to the person say, I actually want to save this. This is valuable to me. I got married for a purpose, and I feel like this is going to benefit me. Yes, we're going to be at a roadblock. Yes, it's not going to be always happy. And I like that you said that. It's not going to always be happy. But when you get to those points, you have to have 2 people working at it. You can't get a paycheck if you ain't working.
Hey, you know what? As somebody who hires people, I surely know that. You ain't getting this check unless you punch that clock. I got you. I feel you.
Yeah.
What you got, Deej? What you got?
The crazy part is, since we on this analogy of a job, right? When you said that men don't want to change or basically listen to things from women, it had me thinking, if a marriage is like a job, right? It's like when you're trying to have a conversation where you're not even yelling or you're not pacing the blame game, but you're just, you mirror this person. I see you through and through every day. So I could say things to you that somebody else wouldn't see. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and to me, in my opinion, in the marriages that I've seen and the friends that I listen to, when you have these conversations with your husband, like, hey, you're lacking in this area. I'm not feeling the love over here, and blah blah blah. Whatever the conversation is about, immediately, sometimes, and not all men, because I want to say that now since he brought that up earlier. I don't want to generalize all men.
Right, not all men.
It just seems like it's an immediate defense, or you what's the word, criticizing me. And so it's like, with that being said, if we want to look at marriage like a job, right? Like you said, you can't get a check. If your boss come up to you after your 90 days and say, hey, Mikhail, you've been doing wonderful in this area. Your 90 days have been wonderful. But over here, when you speak to the customer, I would like for you to speak a little louder. And then also here, when you do this, you're not giving it your all. You can still a little more if you do this or do that, right? How is it that you could take that critique from your manager with no problem? And you'll actually change, because if you don't change, the next 90 days, you're going to be out the door. But then if your wife come have a conversation with you and say, hey, in this area, I need you to speak a little louder. And over here, I need you to just, you give into it like 50%. Go and put a little more into it. Then you're critiquing them. You're trying to be their mom.
Yeah.
And nobody wants to, no wife wants to hear you trying to be their mom. So eventually, it fades.
Yeah, because what he really saying is, you trying to be my daddy. He just identifies you as a mom because you're a woman. He's really saying you're not my daddy. Go ahead, Garrett. Go ahead. I like that, Deidre. That was deep.
Just to kind of further that analogy with work, like I look at it also like it's an investment. Like when you invest in something, you're taking a risk, number one, and no risk, no reward, high risk, high reward. And so when you put in your portion of the investment, you're expecting to get something out of it. Now, of course, we're dealing with imperfection. We're dealing with two human beings. So you're not always going to get what you're looking for. But again, you want to make sure you're putting in the right things. You're investing the right things. You're investing in love. You're investing in patience, communication. You are, making sure that you're fulfilling that person in every way. Financially, you're getting yourself together. So like it's just a matter of trying to figure out who you're dealing with, learning taking the time to learn who you're actually married to. Like people get married and then they're strangers and they don't get past that stranger stage and saying it in that kind of way. It's like you really have to get to know this person. And that means I'm gonna get on that person's nerve from time to time. What is that button that I push to get on their nerve? They're gonna get on my nerves. What are the things that we have to dig a little bit deeper than the surface? And this also kind of led me to think, Mikhail, about what you said about expectations. Like, who shapes our expectations of what marriage should be? Is it social media? Is it Hollywood? Is it our own family experiences? Is it a culmination? That's the next segment.
You're gonna be able to chop that up. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Keep going.
Yeah. And I think like our perception is based on reality. Hopefully is based on some form of reality, but unfortunately there are other factors that shape our perception of what marriage should be. And then it's like, is that realistic? Like you see the glamour and the good side of marriage, but it's some other sides that people don't really talk about. And I think that's a part of the problem, is that we don't really have these kind of discussions as often as we should, which will open the door to men being able to understand women better and where they're coming from, and vice versa. So yeah.
And I write down everything y'all say. Well, I'm gonna hit the work thing, because I hear people talk about marriage being work, and it is work, but I actually like what I do. Like I like what I do for a living.
Say it again. Say it
like
again.
I like what I do for a living. I like the businesses that I've started. I like the organizations that I've co-founded. I like what I do for a living. And sometimes in marriage, people just don't like their job. It is what it is. Some people just don't like their job. Because in the last podcast, Corey said something that I thought about. And Antonio Perez says something. He said, nobody told me that being a father and being a husband will actually be this hard. Like, I didn't know that it required this. Like when you get a job, you get a job description. Like, you get a job description and people tell you, they tell you this is your job. And then they tell you, I'm going to train you how to do your job. So there's somebody telling you. So when I hire a therapist, I'm telling them how to do assessments. I'm telling them how to interact with funders. I'm telling them how to do billing. I'm telling them how to deal with crisis management, right? But unfortunately, when we go into marriages, there's no job description. It's just your expectations. So it's your expectations. And I don't think any of us, including me, have enough common sense to try to flesh out how someone can meet our expectations before we get committed. And that's the thing about marriage being a job. It's a job that when the two people do it, they don't know what the job entails all the way. Because sometimes life determines what your marriage requires. Okay. So like, for instance, if you're with somebody and they lose their job and they were the provider, that requires a pivot that I didn't know I was going to have to do that. Or when you have children, it changes the dynamic of the couple. Or now you're an entrepreneur versus a person who gets a check. Or now a person has a dream of something they want to be, but that dream interferes with them being married, no matter if it's the husband or the wife. So I think that people have to show you how to work. People need to flesh out some of these things before they get married. And I don't mean premarital counseling in a spiritual way. And I'm also a pastor. I gave up pastoring because I had kids. But we need men to build skills of marriage. We need people to know how to resolve conflict. I say this every week. We need them to know how to manage money. They need to know how to treat a woman. Men need to know how to treat themselves. They need to know that self-care is just not a basketball game and watching an athletic contest and going to the barbershop and have a conversation. Some of it is buying a book. Some of it is getting with your guys and really fleshing out your issues, going to see a therapist. So what I mean is, as much as we say marriage is work, you have to like your job. Like, you got to you have to like your freaking job. Yeah, marriage is work, but you got to like your job. And guess what else you got to like? You got to like your benefits package. You got to like your benefits package. You got to like your health insurance. You got to like how much you make. You got to like how much sex you get. There's a lot of things that go into marriage from a male side. And I think sometimes men, and I'm not trying to bash men because I'm a man, we ain't ready for the job. Sometimes we are just not ready.
They lied on their resume.
But you'll be surprised that when a woman has expectations, they don't even really know what those expectations are. What I wanted at 20, I don't want now that I'm 48. I don't want the same thing for a woman right now. I just don't. So, and like y'all said, if people are not changing, they ain't growing. And that's going to conclude this segment. I got y'all on this next segment.
Well, you said your age almost did the Kevin Hart on you.